So we've had some huge news about the World Deadlift Championships. Thor is coming back to try and pull a world record, but he is aiming to pull 505 this weekend at Eisenhart. So how is that going to affect him at the World Deadlift Championships? If he gets the record, can he hold his peak? Can he re-peak for World Deadlift Championships? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, because I want to talk first of all about my boys that I've got doing the World Deadlift Champs, their programming, the systems that I'm going to be using, and how we're going to be peaking for September 6th. Competing, I've got Tom Stoltman, Luke Stoltman, and Matthew Ragg, and they are going to be doing the full show. So the training blocks that I've been using for the three of them are completely different, really, because Tom, the way in which we're training for World Deadlift Champs is it's like a couple of weeks after Strongest Man on Earth. So for Tom, it's not the biggest focus in the world. I have been keeping the deadlift in there, but a Strongest Man on Earth, there's a trap bar for max, I'm sure you probably know. So as a coach, it's quite difficult. You know, it's a difficult situation to be like, peak for the heaviest show ever in history that doesn't have a deadlift in it. It's got a side handle deadlift, and at the same time prep and peak for a conventional deadlift a couple of weeks afterwards. There is no like perfect way to do it. It's just a bit of a clusterfuck, basically. So for Tom, what I've been doing is I've been keeping his deadlift in. Basically, the trap bar in shore is going to be done when they're quite fatigued. So I thought, well, we'll deadlift previous to that so that he's tired when he comes to the trap bar, and then it's going to be a little bit more similar to how it's actually going to feel in competition. So we've been deadlifting before the trap bar, and I went with a really low volume top set approach where we kept reps in the tank. So even the top sets have been like RP 8, 8.5 as the goal. And really I've been scaling the top sets upwards, you know, dropping the rep ranges and increasing the load. Very simple programming system before the trap bar, which is where we put more focus. For Tom's training for Strongest Man on Earth, I decided to make this full day and like a really high neural day. There's many ways to program for a show like that, but what I decided to do was make it so it would deadlift, it would trap bar deadlift, and then he would yoke on the same session. So it's three really big, high recovery demand exercises on one session on purpose. The reason for that is so that we can then get loads of recovery in, so that the following week he's recovered and able to scale what he's done again. So programming for Deadlift Champs for Tom's been really simple. The last session we did, he did a 370 triple, and it was the best his deadlifts have moved in training since he's been with me. When he first came to me, deadlift was down quite a lot. So this was the best, you know, basically it looked like he had 5 in the tank, you know, pretty smooth at 370. So a triple there. I'm hoping for Tom that we're able to pull. I'm not sure what the jumps are going to be at the Deadlift Champs. They're a bit random, aren't they? I think it's like 400, 420, 440, and then like £1,000 or something. So I'm hoping for Tom that we can, you know, hone in on that kind of 440 area for competition. But it's going to depend how Strongest Man on Earth goes, how he's feeling after the show. And there's also going to be this kind of weird period between Strongest Man on Earth and Deadlift Champs where it's kind of like he's going to do the Strongest Man on Earth, and then you've got to take into account travel home, a bit of jet lag, blah, blah, blah. It's probably going to lose us about a week, and then we're only about 2 weeks away from Deadlift Champs. So the session that we do in between Strongest Man on Earth and Deadlift Championships, it needs to be a correct weight selection, and it needs to be the correct amount of volume and bar speed, etc. I'm not going to know what that is until we do shore and I see how he's feeling. Hopefully he's injury free, everything goes smooth there. So that's going to decide how Tom peaks for Strongest Man on Earth. For Luke, when Luke competed at Worlds, Luke picked up a little bit of a back injury at Worlds. He had a bit of a spasm in like his glute, and his hip kind of got hiked, and he just ended up in this position where it's quite vulnerable in his lower back. So after Worlds, we really scaled back, and we did a lot of work to slowly reload his back and basically get him in a position where he was able to handle load again properly without being in a vulnerable position. That's all out the way now. Back's all sorted, and we've started ramping up his deadlift training and aiming to peak for deadlift champs. Obviously, Luke's doing the full show, so we're going to be making sure that he's peaked on all the events, not just the deadlift. But for Luke, my goal with Luke is I really, really want him to pull 420. That's the goal that we've set. That's the target that we've set. And currently in his training cycle, where he's at is he's a little bit kind of. I know I said Tom pulled 370, but Tom's peaking for Strongest Man on Earth, which is weeks before the deadlift champ. So Tom's kind of further along in his peaking than Luke. So Luke has pulled 350 for 3 at the minute, and it was a really smooth, fast triple. No hitching, just clean lockouts. And then he's had a speed week, and that's where he's up to right now. The following week, he's going to be pulling 370-ish for 2, like a good double. Then he'll have a speed week, and then we will do a 400. I'm hoping for a close to 400 single is the goal. If he's able to hit 390, 400 in the gym, clean single, then that leads me to believe that he'll be able to hit 420 on the day. So the next couple of sessions will decide if that target that we set is looking achievable. But so far we're way on track. His body feels good. I feel like Luke's got his momentum back again. I feel like he's got his mojo back and training's picking up, and I'm really hoping for a good performance for Luke on the deadlift. So what we're using with Luke at the minute is a conjugate approach where we're rotating between. We've only just gone into this though because, well, we were using conjugate before to be fair, but what we were doing is we were rotating a top set in the suit that was really held back though with volume effort or repetition effort raw, and then we were flicking between the two. And then now as that top set week's got heavier, I've changed the repetition effort to speed effort. So we're then doing like a top set in the suit. The following week it'll be raw speed deads with bands where he's using roughly 50% of projected max in bar weight, so 210 kilos in bar weight, plus I give him roughly 20% in bands, which is about 80 kilo in bands. So that means that he's using like 50% off the floor, 70% lockout, which should be roughly a speed strength stimulus. As we get a bit closer to competition, I'll increase the amount of load that he has on the barbell to a more like strength acceleration zone. So his bar speed will change. Basically speed strength, guys, is trained at kind of like 1 meter to 1.2 meter per second. And then strength acceleration, I'm looking at kind of 0.7, 0.9 area of bar speed is kind of where I'm looking to be. Usually about the 0.75 meter per second. That's kind of my sweet spot that I like to use to 0.8. So if I can get him to about 260 kilo plus the bands, I'm thinking it probably would be roundabouts there. And yeah, that's what I'm doing for Luke's deadlift at the minute. And then Matt after Worlds, basically what happened with Matt is in the build up to Worlds, I felt like he got too light with his, because basically we had him cutting, because he works with Max McCall, that I work closely with as well with Matt, and we had him cutting down so that he could rebound up towards Worlds. What happened with Matt was, and the reason why, because he had a bit of an underperformance at Worlds, if I'm honest, and there was a couple of things that happened, but overall, what I think the main factor was, is when he dieted down, he got really lean, and then as Max ramped his calories and I ramped training, he just reacted differently to how he has in the past. It's like his metabolism went crazy, and he ended up, even though the calories were increasing every week, he just stayed the same weight or lost weight. It's like his metabolism went absolutely crazy. So then as we were getting closer to competition and weights were starting to get heavier, he was actually missing some lifts in the gym that he should never be missing. And yeah, the strength just didn't come as we expected. So then Max ramped his calories really high for the final couple of weeks. And he did start to put a bit of weight on, and he did his performance started to increase, but it was kind of like too little too late at that point, if that made sense. And then when he actually got to Worlds, He got sick on the travel. So basically just everything went wrong. So he had a bit of an underperformance at Worlds. So then we had a conversation and I was like, look, we're getting straight back into this. So I decided that I felt like Matt was just about riding this wave back of strength and then did Worlds. So I didn't want to pull him back like I did with Luke, because I thought you've only just hit your stride, you ain't pulling back. So as soon as he was back from Worlds, I got him in a heavy block. And if any of you have been following him on Instagram, I put him on this rotation of max effort work, where what I planned out was we would do a max effort deficit deadlift, speed work, max effort suited from the floor, speed work, max effort 12-inch, speed work. And then we will go around that cycle 3 times I planned it. And the final suited session would end up being the deadlift champs. So the training cycle that he's gone for on his deadlift is he pulled a single on the deficit at 370, which was meant to be like a really held back single, a heavy single but held back. So he pulled 370 deficit, then he did his speed week. Then he did a 415 suited, then he did his speed week. Then he did a 400 for 312-inch, then he did his speed week. Then we went back round, so he pulled a 400 deficit, speed week, 440 suited, which is what he's just done this week. Then he did, and the 440 suited was a little slower than we think he could have pulled it, because his other training had kind of hit its peak at that point as well. So he was under quite a bit of fatigue for the 440, but that should all start to be managed now as we get closer to the show. So 440 under a lot of fatigue is really good. He's then going to have a speed week, and we're going to hope to pull about 440 from 12 inches. Speed week, we're going to hope to be about 410 deficit. Speed week, and then competition. And that will be the suited deadlift, where we're hoping for Matt to pull 470. So that's the training block that Matt's in. Something to note with Luke and Matt, the final session that I'm going to be doing, which is something that I like to do when I'm really trying to put a cherry on top for a max deadlift, is I'm going to use a reverse band taper. So the last session he's going to do, they're going to use reverse bands, and it's going to be something that's heavy but moderate off the floor, so that it doesn't affect recovery too much. But then as the band tension releases, I want it to be close to the goal weight at lockout, and that'll be the final session about 10 days out. So that way we get 2 benefits. The nervous system gets to feel and experience and gets heightened from holding the weight at lockout, but it doesn't affect recovery too much, because we're able to get that help off the floor with the reverse bands. So it might be something like 340 off the floor, 450, 460 at lockout for Matt. Or for Luke, it's going to be like 320 off the floor, 420 at lockout. So it's not going to be as neurologically demanding, but it's going to prime them for that final that final little cherry on top before they do the deadlift champs. That's my goal with the taper. For Tom, because he's doing Strongest Man on Earth, I can't really plan the taper and the setup as perfectly. We're just going to have to see how things go. Right, so now that I've chatted about the training phases for the MST athletes, back to Thor, but also something I want to talk about is Thor is going to be doing the deadlift champs, going for a world record again, but also Trey Mitchell is going to be putting a deadlift suit on for the first time at this deadlift championships. He pulled 470 raw last year. So I want to talk about Trey in the suit as well, and if it's possible that he could pull 500 plus as well. So we'll start with Thor. He's pulling this weekend, and he's going for 505. His last deadlift session was a really fast 480 kilo, which it doesn't take a rocket scientist to decipher from that as long as because the thing is, when you pull in these crazy weights, guys, CNS fluctuation and recovery, etc., really does play a role. And as long as he recovers properly, tapers properly, and peaks properly for that moment, there's no doubt that he should pull that, in my opinion. And his success rate is very high of peaking. Him and Bass, Australian strength coach, obviously know how Thor reacts perfectly now. So I don't really foresee that 505 being an issue based on that 480. I think he'll peak fine. I think he'll pull it fine. The question really is, I think he's got about 6 weeks from then till the deadlift championships. Can he hold that form? Or some people have said, can he re-peak for that deadlift in 6 weeks' time and pull another record? So if I was dealing with a lifter that was doing in this situation, that had to pull this max and then had to pull again in 6 weeks' times, the way I would do it is I would just extend the system. I wouldn't look to, like, because people saying re-peak, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't necessarily worry about re-peaking. I would just look to hold the peak, because when I look at Thor's 480, you could see that 505, let's just say he was training in the gym and just fucking training for the crack. It seems a natural progression if he wants to pull another single to basically go, right, maybe he does a speed week or whatever he does in between. I'm not sure exactly what Bass does in between. Maybe he does a speed week, or he does an easier week where he does a couple of reps around the 340 area, maybe 360, maybe or 370, roughly, scaled down somewhat, or maybe a speed effort week, and then he'll go and pull another single at 505. That'd be an Eisenhart. So then if it's about 6 weeks away, you've got another down week, then a heavy week, another down week, another heavy week. So there's not really that much to program and periodize for. So what I would do is basically downscale him to like a triple or something at like 440. I'd use his old numbers. I don't know his old numbers, but let's say in the build up to that 505, he pulled 440 for 3 or 2 or whatever. Maybe you should do 445 for 2. Or he might have even just worked in singles, actually, because I believe he might have pulled 440 single, and then he might have pulled 460, 480. Whatever he did, I'd just go back down and add 5 kilo to it, really, and make him fast. And then just do the same with his weeks in between. Just go back to exactly the same protocol you used in between, but just do a tiny little bit more, like 5 kilo more, and just make sure it moves easy. You even don't have to do a little bit more. You could just do the same thing, but aim to move it a little bit faster than last time. And the key thing here, for the reason why I think it's possible to do, is I don't think that 505 is going to be like, when you peak for something and you clutch at every single straw and every single thing you can possibly do to get the PB, I feel like this is just something that Thor's going to hit, and I don't think it's something that he's, I don't think he's used every single avenue possible to pull this weight, especially by the way that 480 moved and the fact that he's done 500 previous in 2020. I feel like this is just another stepping stone for him, and I don't think it's something too crazy to expect him to be able to repeat it again in 6 weeks' time. So, yeah, if it's one of them life or death moments, like when Eddie pulled 500, for example, he put absolutely everything into it. It was such a big deal. You have to come down after something like that. You have to come down. Whereas for Thor, I feel like right now it's going to be like just your regular PB. He's going to pull a PB and he's going to be all right after it. I don't think he's going to be pushing the supplements and stuff like crazy. I think after the boxing, he's learned a lot about his body and his health, and I think he's going to be able to pull it, hold on to it, and do it again a little bit more. That's my opinion on that. Trey Mitchell, though, 470 raw, he's putting a suit on. Could Trey go over 500? Now, I think that Trey could definitely go over 500 at some point in his life. It wouldn't surprise me if he did it raw either at some point. He's a fucking animal. The suit's a weird one that you can't predict. So I'm going to say it's 50-50, because some people put a deadlift suit on and instantly get 20, 30 kilo without really much effort or time in the suit. It doesn't take them too long to get used to it. Whereas other lifters spend ages learning how to perfectly get the suit tightness, the height on the hips, you know, how they put the suit on. Did they put the bottoms on, then the belt, then the straps? Did they put it all on, then the belt last? All these little different ways of setting up your suit. If Trey can get 20, 30 kilo out of his suit, and he's at a 470 raw last year, you know, there's no reason why he couldn't go 500 plus. So I, for one, am really, really excited to see Trey Mitchell in a deadlift suit. If he is able to get anything out of it, then we're going to see a really, really crazy deadlift. I think Thor is also going to be capable of pulling a record this weekend and at Giants Live. And I'm looking forward to watching the full show, because I believe Thor is doing the full show as well. So this is going to be the first time that Thor's back at Giants Live show. He's not just deadlifting, he's going to be doing the full show. We've got a couple of different events in this show. We've got the max deadlift, we've got a Viking press, there is a sandbag steeplechase, a farmer's 15 meters, drop turn 15 meters. There is a front hold, and there is a power stairs event as well. So overall, the events are kind of a little bit of a mix for Thor. Obviously, he's going to be amazing at power stairs, at farmer's walk and sandbag steeple. He should be good at. Not sure how he is at a front hold. I'd imagine leverage-wise, not the best for him. And Viking press, his pressing is pretty strong. He often loses out on like his line. So I think that a Viking might be a better press for Thor, actually, because it's like, obviously, it's a fixed machine. So I'll have to see how he does overall. I'm sure he can pull a big deadlift and recover fine and do the full show. And I'm excited to watch him back. I'm excited to watch my boys. So make sure you check out tickets for the Deadlift Champs 6th of September. If not, officialstrongman.com for the live stream. If you got this far in the video and you want to learn anything strength and conditioning, make sure you check out MST Education, where you can learn strongman periodization and strength and conditioning principles to peak, and some of the conjugate principles that I talked about here. If you want to run any of the training phases, check out the MST Systems app. And if you want to watch another video, make sure you click here for more strongman content.